The hall of the Citadel of Ash smells of old parchment and cold iron, a scent that usually brings Lorene comfort, but tonight it feels like a shroud. She stands in the center of the marble floor, not in the shimmering silks of the other high-born Omegas, but in her ink-stained traveler's wool. Her fingers are stained charcoal black, a silent testament to the secrets she has recorded for a people now broken by war. The heavy oak doors groan open. King Sigurd Helga enters, a mountain of leather and steel, his dark braids trailing over pauldrons etched with the jagged ruins of his enemies. He doesn't look at the line of perfumed offerings. His predatory gaze cuts through the room, locking on to the girl with the defiant amber eyes and the tattered scroll clutched in her hand. That one, Sigurd's voice vibrates through the stone floor. The scribe with the mountain dust on her hem and a tongue she hasn't learned to bite. He crosses the distance in 3 predatory strides, stopping so close Lorene can smell the winter air on his cloak. He lifts her chin with a gloved finger. You have spent your life writing about kings, little Omega. Tonight you will learn what it feels like to obey one. I obey no man who burns books to build thrones. Lorene spits, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Sigurd's lips curl into a dangerous, dark smile. Then here is my final command. You will stay in my chambers until the sun touches the spires of the high bastion. No chains, no ink, no shields. If you can look into my soul and still refuse to submit by dawn, your people go free. But if you break, you are mine. Your submission or your heart, Lorene. Choose. The spiral staircase to the high bastion seems endless, each stone step worn smooth by centuries of kings and conquerors who climbed toward power. Lorene's breath comes shallow and quick, not from exertion, but from the suffocating awareness of the man behind her. Sigurd Helga's footsteps are deliberate, measured, the rhythm of a predator that knows its prey has nowhere left to run. She keeps her eyes forward, her spine rigid with defiance. She spent years studying men like him, dissecting their strategies, their weaknesses, their patterns. Alpha Kings are predictable creatures, she tells herself. They rely on intimidation, on the physical dominance that comes so easily to their kind. But Lorene has always been different. She is an Omega of the mind, not the body. Her weapon has always been her intellect, her ability to read the threads of power and pull them apart with nothing but words and ink. You walk like a woman going to her execution. Sigurd's voice echoes off the stone walls, low and amused. Yet you volunteered for this, little scribe. Why? Lorene doesn't turn. Because unlike you, I understand the value of a life beyond my own. Noble, he says, and she can hear the dark smile in his voice. And foolish. Do you know what happens to noble people in my kingdom? They write the histories that outlive you.
The footsteps stopped. The sudden silence makes her heart slam against her ribs. She paused mid-step, cursing herself for giving him the reaction he wanted. When she finally glances back, Sigurd is standing 3 steps below, his massive frame filling the narrow stairwell. The torchlight catches the sharp angles of his face, the brutal beauty of a man carved by war and loss. I've read every history written about me, he says quietly, his gray eyes locked on hers. They call me the Blood King, the conqueror of Ash, the man who shows no mercy. He takes 1 step up, closing the distance. Tell me, Omega, do you believe everything you read? Lorene lifts her chin.
I believe what the evidence supports. And the evidence says you've destroyed 7 territories, displaced thousands, and built your throne on the bones of scholars like me. Then you're not as clever as you think. Sigurd moves past her, his shoulder brushing hers with enough force to remind her of the difference in their size, their strength. Come, dawn is 6 hours away. Let's see if your precious logic can survive that long.
The high bastion chambers are nothing like Lorene expected. She anticipated a war room, all maps and weapons and the cold efficiency of a military mind. Instead, she finds herself in a space that feels almost human. A massive stone fireplace dominates one wall, flames crackling with warmth. Shelves line the room, not with trophies of conquest, but with books. Hundreds of them, their spines worn and beloved. Lorene's breath catches. You read. Shocking, isn't it? Sigurd moves to the center of the room, his hands working at the buckles of his armor. The monster has a library. She watches, transfixed despite herself, as he removes the pauldrons, the leather chest piece, the vambraces that have become synonymous with his legend. Beneath the armor, he wears a simple black tunic that does nothing to hide the powerful lines of his body. But it's the scars she notices most, the ones that crisscross his forearms like a map of violence survived. You're staring, Sigurd says, not looking at her. I'm observing. There's a difference. He turns, and the firelight catches something in his expression that makes her stomach tighten. Not anger, not even amusement. Something darker, more dangerous. Hunger. Here's how this works, little scribe, Sigurd says, moving toward a table where wine and goblets wait. You have until dawn to find a reason to hate me that isn't written in a book. You think you know me because you've read reports, battle strategies, second-hand accounts from survivors. He pours 2 glasses, the dark liquid catching the firelight like blood. He hands her a goblet. She doesn't take it. I don't need wine to see through you, Lorene says. No, Sigurd agrees, setting the glass on the mantel beside her. You need to stop hiding behind that brilliant mind of yours and actually feel something for once in your carefully controlled life. The words hit like a physical blow. Lorene's fingers curl into fists. You don't know me. Don't I? Sigurd steps closer, and she can feel the heat radiating off him, the barely contained power that makes every alpha dangerous, and this one absolutely lethal. He reaches out, and she flinches, but he only brushes a strand of dark hair from her face. You think your gift makes you untouchable, above the primitive pull of instinct. But I can smell your fear, Omega, and underneath it, something else, something you're terrified to name. Before we go further, please take a second to subscribe to this channel, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Now, let's continue. Lorene jerks away from his touch, her heart racing. This is exactly what tyrants do. They invade, they conquer, and then they try to convince you it was all inevitable, that you wanted it. I never said you wanted this. Sigurd's voice drops to something almost gentle, which somehow makes it worse. I said you feared it. There's a difference. An hour passes in tense silence. Lorene examines the books on his shelves, trying to find patterns, clues, anything that might give her leverage. Philosophy, military history, poetry. The collection is eclectic, intellectual, nothing like what she expected from a man known only for destruction. You're confused, Sigurd observes from where he sits by the fire, watching her with unnerving focus. I'm analyzing. You're trying to fit me into a category that makes sense to you. Conqueror, tyrant, monster. He stands, moving toward a specific shelf. But the truth is always more complicated than the histories want to admit. He pulls down a leather-bound journal, worn and clearly personal. Do you know why I burned the archives of the Southern Reach? Lorene's jaw tightens. Because knowledge is power, and you wanted to erase our culture. Because they contained a lie. Sigurd opens the journal, and she sees handwriting that matches his own, brutal and efficient. Your precious archives claim that the Southern Reach was conquered by my father's army 30 years ago. That your people were subjugated, enslaved, forced to serve the Northern throne. That's historical fact. It's historical fiction. Sigurd turns the journal toward her. My father never conquered the Southern Reach. He married into it. My mother was Southern. Your archives erased her, rewrote the story to make my family the villains, because the truth was too complicated, too human.
Lorene stares at the pages, at the dates that don't match anything she learned. That's impossible. Is it? Or have you been so devoted to your version of history that you never questioned who wrote it? Sigurd sets the journal down and turns his back to her. Then, with deliberate slowness, he pulls his tunic over his head. Lorene's breath stops. His back is a canvas of scars, not the random marks of battle, but something far more deliberate, methodical, marks that spell out words in the ancient script of her people, words she can read even from across the room. Traitor, half-breed, betrayer. The Great Rebellion, Sigurd says quietly. When I was 16, my mother's people rose up against what they called my father's occupation. They captured me, held me for 6 months. Every day they carved a new word into my skin, trying to renounce my father's blood. His voice is steady, emotionless, but Lorene can hear the weight beneath it. Your archives call them freedom fighters, heroes. But I was just a boy who loved his mother's stories and his father's kingdom, and they tried to kill me for existing between two worlds. Lorene's hand moves without permission, reaching towards the scars, towards the truth written in pain across his body. But she stops herself, pulls back, her analytical mind screaming at her to stay detached. "Why tell me this?" she whispers. Sigurd pulls his tunic back on and turns to face her. Because you asked for the truth. This is it. I conquered the territories that harbored the rebellion. I burned the archives that lied about my mother's legacy. I built my throne on justice, not mercy. And I don't apologize for it.
The second hour finds them seated across from each other, wine finally poured, the conversation shifting into something that feels almost like a negotiation. Lorene has regained some of her composure, her mind working through angles and strategies. If you wanted justice, she says carefully, you could have exposed the lies, published the truth. You didn't have to conquer. You think words would have been enough? Sigurd's laugh is bitter. I tried that first. I brought evidence to the Council of Territories. My mother's marriage documents, testimonies from those who remembered. You know what they did? Called me a liar, a conqueror trying to rewrite history to justify his bloodlust. He takes a long drink. So I stopped asking for permission and took what was mine. And in the process, you destroyed innocent lives, scholars, families, people who had nothing to do with what happened to you. War destroys everyone, Sigurd says flatly. The innocent, the guilty, the ones who just wanted to be left alone. That's the truth your histories never capture. There are no clean victories, no conquests without blood. Lorene leans forward.
Then make a different choice. Release my people. Rebuild what you destroyed. Prove that you're more than what the histories claim. And what do I get in return, little scribe? His gray eyes lock on hers. This is it, the negotiation she's been waiting for. Lorene's mind races through possibilities, through what she can offer that has value without surrendering herself. I'll write your true history, she says. I'll record everything. Your mother's legacy, the rebellion's lies, the real story of Sigurd Helga. It will outlive both of us. Sigurd is quiet for a long moment. Then he stands, moving around the table with predatory grace. He stops behind her chair, and she can feel his presence like heat against her back. You're very clever, he murmurs, offering me immortality in ink, a legacy that paints me as the misunderstood hero instead of the monster. His hands rest on the back of her chair, caging her without touching. You're offering me immortality in ink, a legacy that paints me as the misunderstood hero instead of the monster. His hands rest on the back of her chair, caging her without touching. You have it. No, I have your analytical assessment, your carefully constructed narrative designed to manipulate me into mercy. He leans down, his breath warm against her ear. I want the truth you're afraid to admit, that every word I've spoken tonight has shaken your certainty, that your precious logic is failing you. Lorene's hands tremble. She grips the arms of the chair to hide it. You're delusional. Am I? Then why is your heart racing? Why haven't you tried to leave? Why keep looking at me like you're trying to solve a puzzle you're terrified to complete? If you believe that truth matters more than comfortable lies, hit that subscribe button. People like the ones who scarred Sigurd won't, and you need to hear what she did about it. Because in that moment, with his presence overwhelming every carefully constructed defense, Lorene realizes something that makes her blood cold. He's right. Everything she thought she knew, every certainty she built her identity on, is crumbling. And worse, part of her wants to let it fall. The third hour brings a shift in the air, something electric and dangerous. Sigurd has moved to the balcony, staring out at the dark kingdom below. Lorene follows, drawn by something she refuses to name, and stands beside him in the cold night air. Have you ever heard the legend of the Primal Anchor? Sigurd asks without looking at her. Ancient mythology, the belief that every Alpha King has an Omega who can balance his power, prevent the madness that comes from too much conquest. Lorene wraps her arms around herself. It's not real. Isn't it? Sigurd finally turns to her, and in the moonlight, his features are softer, younger, almost vulnerable. My father told me about it before he died. He said that when he met my mother, the entire world went silent. The constant roar of the alpha instinct, the drive to conquer and dominate, all of it just stopped. She was his anchor, the one person who could see him clearly and still choose to stand beside him. And then she died, Lorene says quietly. And he went mad with grief, conquered everything he could reach trying to fill the void, became exactly what the histories claimed. Sigurd's voice is raw. I've spent my entire life trying not to become him, building a kingdom on strategy instead of feeling, logic instead of feeling, and it's worked until tonight. What happens tonight? He turns to face her fully, and the look in his eyes steals her breath.
Tonight I met a woman who makes the world go silent, an Omega with amber eyes and ink-stained fingers who sees through every defense I've built. And I don't know if I'm more terrified of losing her or claiming her. Lorene's analytical mind screams at her to step back, to reject this, to maintain the distance that has always kept her safe. But something deeper, something primal and ancient, roots her in place. "I'm not your anchor," she whispers. "I'm just a scribe trying to save her people." "Are you?" Sigurd reaches out, and this time she doesn't pull away when he cups her face with surprising gentleness. "Then why haven't you tried to run? Why do you keep arguing with me instead of placating me? Why does every word out of your mouth make me want to either throttle you or kiss you until you forget how to form sentences?" "Because I'm not afraid of you. You should be. I'm everything you claim to hate." "I know." Lorene's voice breaks. "That's what terrifies me." The fourth hour finds them back inside, the fire burning low, defenses crumbling on both sides. Sigurd has been telling her about his mother, about the songs she used to sing in the southern tongue, about how she taught him to love words as much as weapons. Lorene listens, and somewhere in the telling, she forgets to analyze. She just feels. She used to say that every great king needed a queen who could finish his unfinished verses, Sigurd says, staring into the dying flames. That power without partnership was just tyranny with a crown. She sounds wise. She was. And when she died, my father forgot everything she taught him. He became the tyrant she feared. Sigurd looks at Lorene. "I swore I would never let that happen, that I would build something lasting, something that honored both sides of my blood. Then why conquer? Why not build alliances, partnerships?" "Because every time I tried, I was betrayed. Every treaty was broken. Every alliance ended with a knife aimed at my back." His voice hardens. "The Southern Reach was the 7th territory to betray me, the 7th time I extended my hand and had it bitten. So I stopped offering hands. I took throats instead." Lorene stands, moving toward him with purpose. "And where has that gotten you? Sitting alone in a tower surrounded by books and scars and a legacy of ashes? It's gotten me a kingdom, power, survival. It's gotten you isolation." She stops in front of him, close enough to feel the tension radiating between them. "You're just as alone as I am. You hide behind conquest the same way I hide behind intellect. We're both cowards, Sigurd, too afraid to risk being seen." The words hang in the air between them, electric and dangerous. Sigurd stands slowly, his massive frame towering over her, and for the first time tonight, Lorene sees not the king, but the man. The one with scars that spell out trauma and eyes that have seen too much loss. "I see you, Lorene of the sunken archive," he says quietly. "I see the brilliant mind and the sharp tongue and the heart you're terrified to expose. I see the woman who volunteered to spend a night with a monster to save her people, who argues with me instead of cowering, who makes me feel something other than rage for the first time in years." He reaches out, his hand hovering near her face. "The question is, can you see me? Not the legend, not the history. Me." Lorene's hand moves before her mind can stop it, reaching up to touch his scarred forearm. The moment her skin meets his, the world explodes.
Images flood her mind, not just lineage and weakness, but everything. His mother's death, the rebellion's torture, the betrayals that hardened him, the loneliness that carved him hollow, and underneath it all, a desperate, aching need for someone who could stand in the fire with him and not burn. She gasps, trying to pull away, but Sigurd catches her hand, holding it against his skin. "Now you know," he says, rough. "Everything, all of it, the monster and the man. So tell me, scribe, what do you see?" Lorene's eyes fill with tears she hasn't allowed herself to cry in years. "I see pain and power, and a man who has convinced himself he doesn't deserve anything soft. Because I don't." "Yes, you do." The words surprise her, but once they're out, she knows they're true. We all do, even kings who build thrones on ashes, even scribes who hide behind ink. The 5th hour arrives with dawn creeping closer, painting the eastern sky in shades of gray. They stand on the balcony again, the world awakening below them, and Lorene can feel the weight of the choice pressing down on her shoulders. "Dawn is coming," Sigurd says quietly. "Soon you'll have to decide. Your people's freedom or what?" Lorene turns to face him. "What exactly are you asking for, Sigurd? My submission? My body? My complete surrender to the mate bond I can feel burning between us?" "I'm asking for your choice." He steps closer, and she can see the vulnerability in his eyes, the fear of rejection that even conquering 7 territories couldn't erase. "That's not fair." "Nothing about this is fair, but it is real." Sigurd reaches for her hand, and this time she doesn't pull away. "I don't want your submission, Lorene. I want your partnership, your brilliant mind arguing with my strategies, your sharp tongue keeping me honest, your strength anchoring my power so I don't become my father." "And if I can't? If I'm not your mythical anchor?" "Then at least I'll have known what it felt like to be seen by someone who matters." Choose truth if you're Team Lorene. The fear can't win. Now watch what happens when she finally stops hiding. Lorene looks at the man before her, the king who conquered her people, the warrior who carries trauma carved into his skin, the alpha who makes her world go silent and her heart race in equal measure. Every logical thought in her head screams at her to walk away, to take her people's freedom and disappear into obscurity where it's safe. But whom has she ever taken the safe path? "I need you to understand something," Lorene says, her voice steady despite the chaos in her heart. "I'm not doing this to save my people. They'll be free regardless. You gave your word." "I did. And I'm not doing this because you're a king or because of some mystical bond the universe decided to forge between us." "Then why?" Sigurd's voice is barely a whisper. "Because for the first time in my life, I'm choosing to stop observing history and start making it." Lorene takes his face in both hands, feeling the way he trembles at her touch. "I see you, Sigurd Helga, the monster and the man, the scars and the strength, and I choose to stand in the fire with you." When their lips meet, it's not gentle. It's a collision of everything they've been holding back, all the fear and desire and desperate need crashing together. Sigurd pulls her against him, and Lorene feels the mate bond snap into place, a connection so powerful it steals her breath. This is what the legends spoke of. Not submission, not dominance, but two people choosing to be fully seen and standing together anyway.
Dawn breaks over the high bastion, painting the room in gold. Lorene stands at the window, wrapped in Sigurd's cloak, watching the world wake. Behind her, she can hear him moving, the rustle of parchment and the scratch of a quill. "What are you doing?" she asks without turning. "I'm writing a new treaty." Sigurd's voice is calm, certain. "Your people are free. The archives will be rebuilt, and you will have complete authority over what histories are written." Lorene turns, surprised. "Just like that?" "Just like that." He looks up from the parchment, and in the morning light he looks younger, lighter, like a burden has been lifted. "I told you, I don't want your submission. I want your partnership. That means trusting you with the truth, even when it makes me look like the monster." She crosses to him, looking at the treaty written in his bold handwriting. It's more than generous, it's revolutionary. The Southern Reach restored, reparations paid, a council formed with equal representation. "Your advisors will think you've gone mad." "Let them." Sigurd pulls her into his lap, and she goes willingly, marveling at how natural it feels. "I've spent my entire life being who everyone expected, the conqueror, the tyrant, the blood king. Maybe it's time I became who my mother hoped I could be." "And what's that?" "A king worth writing about." He kisses her temple, "with a queen sharp enough to keep him honest." Lorene's breath catches. "I never agreed to be queen." "No, you agreed to stand in the fire with me. Everything else is negotiable." His smile is genuine, warm, nothing like the dark predator who commanded her presence last night. "So negotiate, my brilliant scribe. What do you want?" And for the first time in her life, Lorene doesn't have to calculate or strategize or hide behind intellectual distance. She simply tells him the truth. "I want to write a history that tells the real story. Not the legend, not the propaganda, the messy, complicated, beautiful truth of two broken people choosing to build something better." "Done." Sigurd hands her the quill. "Then write it. Start with this treaty. Make it official."
The great hall of the Citadel of Ash is packed with witnesses, lords and ladies, scholars and soldiers, the people of the Southern Reach, freed from their cells, standing in disbelief as their scribe walks forward not as a captive, but as a queen. Lorene signs the treaty with steady hands, her ink-stained fingers marking the parchment with authority. Beside her, Sigurd signs as well, and when it's done, he takes her hand and raises it high. "Behold the new history," he announces to the assembled crowd, "written not in conquest, but in choice, not in submission, but in partnership. Let it be known that Lorene of the sunken archive is not my captive, but my equal, my anchor, my queen." The hall erupts in chaos, shock, disbelief, but also from the Southern Reach survivors, something that sounds like hope. Later, when the ceremonies are done and they stand alone in the room that started it all, Lorene looks at the man beside her and smiles. "You know this won't be easy," she says. "Half your kingdom will think you've been enchanted. The other half will think I'm a traitor."
Good thing we're both used to being misunderstood. Sigurd pulls her close. Besides, I have a brilliant scribe who's going to write the real story. Let them read it in 50 years and decide who we really were. And who are we, exactly? Two people who chose truth over comfort, messy over perfect, real over legend. He kisses her, slow and deep. Two people who decided that the best stories are the ones where everyone gets to write their own ending. Lorene laughs against his lips, the sound free and joyful. Then let's make it a good one. And as the golden dawn spills across the citadel of ash, they begin writing a new chapter, not of conquest or submission, but of two souls who found each other in the darkness and chose to build something bright. The histories would debate them for generations. The legends would argue about who surrendered first. But Lorene and Sigurd would know the truth, that the greatest victory isn't found in submission or dominance, but in two people brave enough to be fully seen and choosing to stand together anyway. That's the story worth writing. That's the legacy worth leaving. And as the new High Queen of the Iron Throne takes up her quill to record the first entry in the true history of their kingdom, she smiles. Because for the first time in her life, she's not just observing the story, she's living it.